Hello, I'm Cote de Pablo, and I played TIVA David on a little show called NCIS.
And my name's Michael Weatherly, and I played very special agent Anthony DiNozzo on the same show. They called him Tony. They called you Ziva, but together they were...
TIVA.
TIVA. And so this podcast, which we are calling...
Off-duty.
Off-duty. Because we're
pretty off-duty
Because
right
we're
now.
relaxed.
Yes.
And it's been a decade since we really shared a camera and a microphone.
Yes.
And we've never really done this, where we're going to look behind the curtain a little bit, and we're going to investigate the show, the relationships, the actors, the producers, the directors, the crew.
And we're going to have some pretty special guests. Sean Murray, Joe Spano.
And then people from the universe like Eric Christian Olsen and Danielle Arua. We shouldn't tell all the secrets because we don't want the cat to get out of the bag.
And yes, and we promised 25 episodes for now.
Are you ready to do 25 of these?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is 25 instances where I'm going to try and make you laugh and...
cry.
I'll probably be the one who cries. All right.
I think you're right about that.
Let's do this thing. So talk to me about what you remember from 20 years ago. Anything?
No.
Okay. Maybe a helpful montage?
Oh, that would be great.
Let's see one.
In the fall of 2003, America was going through the growing pains of a new millennium. It was 2 years after 9/11, the largest domestic terror attack in American history. And President George W. Bush had just begun a war that would last the better part of 2 decades. And The Apprentice, a soon-to-be popular reality show, hosted by some guy no one would ever hear from again, began shooting its first season. But most importantly, a global phenomenon started. Not the Da Vinci Code, not the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Those things also happened in 2003, but most importantly, on September 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern on the CBS television network, a show premiered that no one had ever seen the likes of before. Well, except for a few episodes on the show JAG, but not in its own time slot. It was called Navy Naval Criminal Investigative Service, or Naval Criminal Investigative Service, or NCIS.
All right, Michael, you're blowing it. Let me take it from here. NCIS would become one of the most successful television franchises in history. It would spawn 20 seasons and counting, 3 spin-offs, and win dozens of awards. It has been one of the most watched scripted television shows for the past 15 years and was watched by 300 million people just this last year. But what made NCIS so special? Well, it wasn't just a group of quirky characters. It was a dysfunctional family solving crimes together that set the template for crime shows to come. Whether it was Gibbs and his rules, Ducky's sage advice while disemboweling some corpse, Mickey's side-eyed glances, or Abby's hacker persona, and unconventional approach to, well, everything, NCIS made us feel at home week after week. In this podcast, we are going to go back in time and rewatch and revisit NCIS starting with season 3 when someone new joined the cast. Yep, it's me, Ziva David. We'll have fan favorites like Sean Murray, Brian Dietzen, Sasha Alexander join us as we get behind the scenes, share stories, and rehash why the show captured the hearts of America. So come on this nostalgic adventure with us as we take some off-duty time to explore NCIS.
Why don't you read the show synopsis for us?
Okay. Now, a show synopsis, you know what that means? It means I'm gonna nutshell it for you. Here's the show synopsis. There's a quirky team of agents that work for a really unknown agency. Doesn't matter. Their relationships in something called NCIS is what makes every adventure brand new, dynamic, musical, and fun, and created this show by one of the most impressive television talents in the history of the medium, Donald P. Bellisario, who created Magnum P.I., JAG, Quantum Leap, Airwolf, and guess what? Lots of other things. He wrote on Battlestar Galactica, the original. He wrote Baa Black Sheep, which James Whitmore Jr. was. I'm saying I didn't nutshell it.
No, you couldn't, because it's actually
too big for a nutshell.
I think you just made the point.
Oh, nuts. Well, I guess that's why we need 25 episodes, right? To talk about all this stuff.
I want to start asking you questions because I want
Okay,
to
yeah, let's
know
loosen this up.
about. Well, I want to know about you. I want to know about you, about how you got started, about how you booked this.
Oh, it's a lot.
Take me to the beginning, Michael.
You want my NCIS history?
I do.
I was working with Peter Bogdanovich in Australia, and we're going to talk about this with a few of our guests in the future. But I had a magical dinner with Don Belisario and his family. And after the dinner, Don offered me the job. So I accepted the job. I flew back. I started right away. I think I had like 1 weekend to turn around and start shooting the 2 episodes of Jag that were the pilot, Meltdown and Ice Queen. And I had no idea who the character was. I had no idea what I was doing. Don Belisario quickly took me by the scruff, like a puppy, by the back of the neck. Not literally, well, almost literally. And shook me up. And he said, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, stop that because it's not good. And it was my acting. And he said, I want the guy I had dinner with. I want you. I don't give a fuck what you do as far as the script goes. Fuck the script. I wrote it. Don't do it because, or we'll replace you with somebody who can do it. But I want to see that guy and I don't care about the rest of it. And it shook me to my core because here I was 13 years into what I thought was a professional career. And I had this guy telling me I couldn't do it. And he was, you spend all this time with like script supervisors and beautiful people doing wonderful jobs, but they're correcting you. So you start to become really self-conscious and locked in and more stiff and uncertain and unsure about your own flavor and fervor and your own spirit. And it dies if you don't nurture it and nourish it. And here was this guy going, that's what I want. The heart. I don't give a shit how your cheekbones look. And if you keep posing like that, Weatherly, I'm going to slap the back of your head, basically. Hence the head slap, I think.
So what did you do to find Denozo?
I needed to amuse myself. I needed to tell stories that connected from me. What happened next is over the course of those 2 years of experimentation, I went to the edges. Denozo became incredibly inappropriate. Denozo became this wisecracky guy ad-libbing with all these movie references. He became somebody very vain and concerned with his hair and everything, but not as a good thing, as like a character fault. And that was me poking fun at my own background in soap operas and being concerned about the way you look, which inevitably happens. I covered my dressing room mirrors with paper so that I did not see my reflection. I didn't want to go into the hair and makeup trailer because I didn't want to think about it. And I became basically a little actor terrorist. And I ran around blowing things up. And at a certain point, I turned to Sasha Alexander and I said, I don't care. I'd rather they fired me. I'd rather not do it. Because the way it felt before, I couldn't stand it anymore. And then I put all these pieces together and I found through those first 2 seasons, glimpses of what it could be. Like little aperture, little flashbulb moments of like, oh, that felt good. Ooh, what if I do that? So I started coming in with all these ideas and watching all these movies with Cary Grant and thinking, what did he do? How do you do that? And applying so many things to it. My friend Jensen Ackles from Dark Angel, who played this character, Alec, on that show, he was so loose and free. I'm like, maybe I'll imitate him a little bit. And I'm such a bad mimic, it doesn't matter because no one will ever recognize that I'm doing Jensen Ackles. I would do Tom Hanks. I would do Alec Baldwin from, Glengarry Glen Ross. I'd do whatever came into my mind to amuse myself and piss off pretty much everyone I was working with. But Don would call me. Every once in a while, I would get this Don call saying, you're doing it. You're doing it. Keep going. Keep going. Mark Harmon, would we reload a scene and I'd be getting criticized by the director and he would as frustrated as Mark, I'm sure, was with me throughout the whole thing, this exploration, he said, do it. Otherwise, man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for?
What the hell's Denozo doing? I don't know.
Gotta go out there. You gotta try. You gotta do stuff that makes you scared. Or else You're just standing on a piece of tape saying bullshit. That's not the show. And so by the time I met you, The Terrorist was fully funded. When your screen test happened, I was not somebody who looked at the words. I was not somebody who cared at all about that. I cared about energy and destabilizing expectation. And that's when we met. So you met somebody who was truly wild. Now talk to me about your journey.
Oh, I had been living in New York for a while. After graduating school, I remember auditioning for a couple of years and making a living off acting. I always had a couple of national commercials running. And for some reason, I felt like, well, I'm making it. I'm living off acting and I'm going to yoga classes. And
you're trained, right, through college?
Yes, I trained. I went to Performing Arts High School. Then I went to conservatory. And so I was technically living off acting, and I could call myself an actress because that's all I did to pay my bills. But at one point, I remember talking to my very good friend, Maggie Beisch, and she said, "Babe, are you acting?" And I said, "Well, I'm paying my bills with acting. I mean, I'm doing national commercials, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that." And she goes, No, are you acting?" And I said, "I'm auditioning." And she goes, "No, auditioning is not acting. Are you acting?" And I said, no. And that was like a huge moment, like an aha moment. I got a phone call, and the phone call was, "Hey, let's audition for five different shows." One of them at the time was Alias, Boston Legal, NCIS, and I forget the other two. And so I had this audition for this show called NCIS, and I remember
which
auditioning.
You were a huge fan of.
I had, funny enough, I had never really seen TV, so I wasn't even sure
what
what
do you mean
Boston
you never
Legal.
Saw TV?
Well, because I was a New Yorker, so I was out in the, I was going to, I was going to a yoga class, or I was going to an acting class, and then I had.
Did you have a TV?
I think I did at the time, but I never turned it on. I never did. And so it was a very bizarre thing. Here I was auditioning for all of these things, but I wasn't watching.
No DVDs or.
No, I did go to the theater. I mean, I did go to the movies a lot. And it was one of my favorite things when I was living in New York was I would, especially on a winter day, by myself, you'd go to the little theater right there by 66th Street, I think it was, so, the Upper West Side. Mm-hmm. And it was the little one that played all the art house movies, all the foreign
Lincoln
movies. Yeah,
Plaza,
the Lincoln
right.
Plaza, exactly. And so I'd go to that like around the 12 noon. No one was there. Maybe two other cats. You know what I mean?
Would have
Like
run
no
into
one
me
was there.
a few years
and,
earlier.
Yeah, and I would sit there and I would watch all of these wonderful foreign movies by myself, and many of them I remember just walking down the streets, then wiping my eyes and crying, and I always felt, and I will say this, ever since I graduated, I always felt like that I wasn't hitting the big time, and big time just meant like a job, like a steady job. You know what I mean? That I wasn't there yet. And I was so young, but I had all of these massive expectations, And so every time I went to an audition, I was very eager. I was like, get me the part. Like I felt like I was in chorus. Like, I was like, I really need this. And so it was a fantastic time. It was very, very young time, full of dreams, very simple time too, because as much as you say, well, I could pay my bills and all of that, my existence was very frugal.
Simple,
it
meager.
was.
So when you are preparing, and I'm not sure you would even remember this, but you have your 5 auditions coming up, of which one of them is the Navy Naval Orange Criminal Investigative TV show, CSI in the Navy. You're getting ready to do this.
I auditioned for it, and then 3-4 weeks later, I got a phone call saying she's testing, and I was like, testing what? For what? Like, I had no idea what the test was for, what TV show. I had auditioned for all these other things. And then they said, yes, but we don't know, and so you have to give us a little time. This was on a Friday. Friday night, I went to a party, and I was hanging out with my manager at the time, and he said, well, this is never going to happen. This deal's never going to go through, so don't worry about it. It's never going to go through. Sunday, the test was on a Monday. Sunday afternoon, I was walking to I think it was like Central Park, and I get a phone call, and it was my agent saying, you need to go to your apartment. You're getting on a flight in a couple of hours, and we're sending you the sides. They're testing you tomorrow. And I thought, what? I had never looked at my sides. I had no idea what this was for. So I had to go home. I had to look at these sides. And on the way to Los Angeles on that flight, I learned everything. And I barely slept because I wanted to go in word perfect. And enough to be able to put my sides down and be able to play.
Right.
And so the next day...
This is, you know what I call this?
What?
Countdown. It's 24 hours. 24 hours.
And so what ended up happening is that I show up to the test, to the infamous test, right? And there's another actress there. And I ask her very politely, how many times have you auditioned? And she goes, oh my God, I've auditioned like 15, 16 times for this part. And I thought, in my mind, oh, great. They're just bringing me to have someone to audition her against. But this is definitely her part. You know what I mean? Like they just need the,
Interesting. And what did that do? Did that release something in you? Like, well, then I'm just going to do what I want.
The worst part is that I was standing outside her audition because it was a small room, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you were in there, and all I could hear was laughter.
We had a ball.
Right. She was laughing.
Fantastic.
She was laughing with you and laughing at you. And no, she was laughing with you. That was the thing. And I thought, for sure, that it's her part. Why am I? So I just thought, look, I'm just going to do the thing that I do, and that's it. I can't think about anything else. I'm not going to do what I just heard because it's going to get in the way of whatever I've perceived this character to be.
Right.
You know. So I walk in there, and it's remember, it was like set up like a small little theater.
Like a little theater, right?
Yeah, small little theater.
There were probably 15 people.
Right, and I was coming from a big theater. I was coming from the Golden Gate. It was 2,500, seat theater. So I go in and I see a couple of executives. Ignorance is bliss, right? Because there were, I think it was Les and David Staff, and it was Don Belisari. It was some big people were sitting in that room. And I don't think there were more than six people.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe there were
5, 6 people. I don't think more.
People standing in the shadows.
It could have been. I don't remember. And I just walked in, and I remember sort of walking into what I perceived the character to be. So not laughing, not extra. And that's usually what I do nowadays.
You walk in.
I walk in centered and as the character.
Right.
And, or at least what I think the energy that I'm supposed to bring into the room is. And so I'm sitting in this energy. The other girl leaves and I go break a leg. And she, I'm still being very much like, hey, break a leg. You know what I mean? Like very nice, And I walk in and then I'm like, look, I'm just going to do this thing. And all of a sudden I meet you. And I had no idea who Michael was or who Tony was, but we start doing the scene. And halfway through the scene, the infamous moment when you go off script and you sort of touch my face and you go, oh, you're so pretty. You remind me of Salma Hayek.
Right.
And at that moment, I clocked something. And I was like, oh, this guy's trying to sabotage my audition. And I immediately perked up. And there was a moment there where I was like, it was Rage Against the Machine.
Oh, yeah.
It was that moment.
Oh, yeah.
And then it got really serious for me. And it was after that moment that I saw a complete switch in the room. And they started thinking, whatever was going on was really funny. And they started laughing. I mean, genuinely laughing. Before, what I was hearing was you and the girl they were auditioning laughing. You guys were having fun. This time, everything switched.
They were laughing at the dynamic. They were
laughing at the dynamic that was absolutely established by you doing something that sent me into a frenzy of anger.
But stoic. Ziva Davi.
Very stoic.
Kind of deadpan with a little bit of like...
A little bit of a...
So you think this is going to work?
Yeah.
And of course, you didn't realize that DiNozzo, being a huge movie buff, would always tell people or refer to, constantly like, that guy looks a little like Hal Holbrook. Did you ever see Magnum Force? Or, you know what she reminds me of? Ginger Rogers, but only from the back, and it's like there's constant movie references in the show. So when I ad-libbed that, I was looking for a way in that scene because you were so different in your approach already coming into the scene than the prior audition. And so the way that I said, you were meeting the terrorist, I was looking for the way in, and I was looking for a disruption. How can I blow up this pipeline so you don't get any more oil? What can I do? What can I do? And you had no idea and where the hell it was coming from.
Well, I actually thought, remember, I didn't know you. I
Right,
didn't know
of
the
course, yeah, yeah.
context of this. I had no idea how you worked. So all I know, I'm coming in blind into a situation that is, by the way, my test.
Oh, sure.
And so all I know
Well,
is
that's
that,
what you thought it was.
well, I thought it was my test.
And see,
Well, it was my test. It was my audition.
but I thought it was my test.
Oh, come on. You had the show. It was your
I thought
part.
it was my test.
Okay.
I wasn't working, right? I wasn't in production. And I think it was summertime.
You were coming from the job.
I wasn't coming from the set that day.
You sure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Because I had to come back from my vacation early for the test. We weren't, I don't think we were
okay.
shooting yet. And so the thing that I remember about it was I thought, why isn't Mark Harmon reading this person? I mean, in all honesty, I was like,
this is so interesting to me.
well, of course, I'm number 3 on the fucking call sheet. Like, what am I doing coming in on my off day?
But didn't you think they were auditioning the girl that would inevitably at some point sort of become your...
Not at all.
No, not at all. So you had no idea who you were auditioning. You were just auditioning someone.
No.
So you had no idea this was a test. You had no idea this was...
No, and I assumed that it was like something. But as far as I was concerned, I'm like, why are they bringing me in here?
Oh, that's so funny.
So an actor immediately gets insecure and thinks that somebody like, what are they doing? And why
so are you saying that your insecurity met my insecurity?
No, I think we just came from different insecurities because at this point, I lived in Valencia next to the studio. I had pushed all my chips to the middle of the table. I had surrendered pretty much every aspect of my life to the mothership. I was like, I'm going to be a better actor. I'm going to be I need to figure this out because I thought, I was told that I sucked and I needed to get my act together. So I was like a cult member of the NCIS world. I took it more seriously. It was do or die. Every day, every second of it was do or die. So when I say it was my audition, I don't mean that, I was worried about my job in that day. It's just that every single thing about it was dead serious, even though it seemed like I was blowing it up and making fun of it and being a game show host and some silly person, right? Which is, we get to this later on, but how dead serious it was and how important this relationship became. And it was in the audition. There was a little bzz, right?
Totally. It was absolutely there.
And they saw
you
it,
felt
and
it,
I saw that what you were doing. And then as we got through the scene, I thought, she hates me, but they liked it. I wonder.
I remember the note from Dawn was, I want you to do the scene again, but I want you to laugh in this moment. And I just said, no problem. And so we did the scene again. And at that moment, I had this really massive, big laugh. And that totally, it killed them. They were just, they were, because what they wanted to see was the reaction from you. And the thing that made it funny was your reaction to this big laugh.
Yeah, it's like,
which was, by the way...
Are you making fun of me?
Well,
are you
laughing
at me?
It was the first time that you actually heard me laugh.
Right.
Right. And it wasn't a laugh like, oh, I'm going to laugh with you. It was a laugh at you.
No, I know. That's the thing. And because Don also knew that the insecurity of the Donoso character, all of his weapons, all the poking and all the movie references and all the, you look a little like Salma Hayek and then all those things to push somebody else off center is really my protection. The best, defense is a good offense. So he knew that what would get me back isn't strength. It's, so you think you're funny. Oh my God, what an idiot. And it's like, whatever, like taking my power away is taking my humor away.
I think it was that exact moment.
And man, we haven't unpacked this in a long time, but it sets the table for the first scene that you and I have in Kill Ari, where you slouch suggestively in your seat.
I wasn't interested in her. We were partners.
She wasn't attractive.
She was.
It goes straight through all of the interactions. You know, I remember.
But the funny thing is, after that audition, so we finished the audition, right?
Stay in the audition.
And I remember I told you I'm walking in with this very sort of foreign energy, and then I go into the bathroom and I change out of whatever I perceived the character to be, right?
Yes.
Which was I think it was like a leather jacket, black pants, you know, and I put on this very kind of hippy dippy dress, you know, and I walk out thinking, okay, great, that was just another audition, and here I go. I go back to my hotel and I go back to New York. And I'm sitting outside waiting for a taxi cab. And out comes Don Belisario. And he says, hey, you know, why don't you get a ride with Michael? And I said, no, thank you so much. I have a cab coming. And he goes, no, I want you to get in the car with Michael and he'll take you home. And I said, no, thank you, sir. I have a cab coming. And and then he said, oh, God damn it, you got the part, kid. Remember? It was like the quintessential like Hollywood moment.
Oh, yeah.
I knew before agents or managers or anyone knew. And then you gave me a ride home.
Yes, I didn't. Yes.
You see how I corrected myself?
I'm
because
glad
I've done
we've
this before.
learned now.
I've learned.
Yes.
And so, and then you and I talked, and it was this really kind of a different energy, right? Because you were meeting me.
Yes. And
it was a very different person.
And you were meeting a slightly different version of me.
Sure, I was. And I remember just being like,
I
had my Jeep Wrangler. You did. And it was, by the way, that was my favorite car at the time. A Jeep Wrangler was like the greatest car you could have. It was
and you
BT,
were in West Hollywood. And I remember the hotel you were in. And it wasn't very far away from Television City. It was just a short scoot away. But so it was a very brief little car ride where we talked a little bit about what just happened. It's so crazy. Your life changed on a dime. In a one little plane trip. Now you're going to live in California for how many years?
Well, 19 years.
Right. And people don't quite realize it's like deployment. Like, oh no, there's no going. You've already signed the contract because you tested. It's not like you could go, on second thought, that Michael Weatherly.
No, and I remember, by the way, at the time, my manager was telling me, oh, we're going to sign a contract for 6 years. And I remember just being like, 6 years? That's an entire life. What do you mean 6 years? I can't do more than 3. I can't wrap my head around, you know? And it was this like really kind of emotional outburst about the time, you know? And he said, don't worry. This will not go more than 3 years. It will never go past the 3-year mark. Well,
here we are.
Here we are. And by the way, time goes by like this.
But it's a sort of parallax view of looking, when we both look back at this moment, because I think that in the months after that moment, we could look at that audition. I called it our audition, but you see, I really did feel
our audition.
Yeah, I felt like we were
the Ziva Tony audition.
In that moment, we were together, and you know, it was this.
Did you think anything of me during the audition?
Oh yeah.
What did you think? Honestly,
I thought that your stare. The strength that you held, the moments that you held, the stillness that you held was extremely like intimidating.
She had a special thing, especially with you, that she violated constantly,
and it was disruptive,
very much so,
to me. Right? But he knew how to get my goat. I don't find you funny. I don't find you. You know what? I'm going to encroach on the space that makes you a little uncomfortable.
Yes, because that's who you were. I mean, meaning DiNozzo was very much into women and women, you know, womenizing and all that stuff. And what
he was
I think
a caricature sometimes,
right? And so
right.
I think what Don wanted was, I don't think DiNozzo had ever felt uncomfortable in the company of a woman that was so confident about her sexuality, and she was almost able to toy with it.
Yes.
Use it as a way, in a very playful way, to deconstruct all of these walls that you had. And by doing so, by chiseling at that, I think we found something that was ultimately what became the dynamic between these two people. They started seeing through each other's walls.
Yes.
You know, and I think that became very evident in season 3.
And all the different male characters on NCIS, especially I think when you look at season 3, they're almost the different faces of of the masculine American or American male masculinity stereotypes. You know, you have the stoic Gibbs with the old school things, and then you have this guy reading Get Some magazine who's like, oh, look at the, you know, and then you have McGee,
like the super techie, like
McGee, who's like a little nervous around women, but he's also really attracted to this tattooed goth lady who's, but you know, I don't want to be uncomfortable with it, like very almost formal, and then
but a gentleman,
and then David McCallum, who's
very proper,
but also not above seeing a very attractive woman.
No, never.
Noticing,
never.
You know, like in the Civil War.
Very much a man.
In the Civil War episode.
Oh, yes.
You know, he's a little blinded by her
beauty.
Right. And that's this masculine foible, right? And so it is an interesting take on the show to see all these different facets of masculinity. And I think that what Ziva's really great at, and because you have Jenny Shepard and you have obviously Abby, but you and Sasha had done with Caitlin Todd had created a kind of really strong family member sister, but you kind of came in as like the exchange student, or like you're living with the family for a little while, but just so you can go to school over here, and you're not sure you like the whole thing. And I don't eat breakfast. Let's just be clear, you know. I think that you were able to check Gibbs. You're like, you will respect me. I will respect you, but it will be 2 ways.
That's the elevator scene.
White people don't bypass the chain of command.
Which is?
Me. We clear on that? Officer David.
Crystal.
With McGee and so your femininity and the strength of that really comes, you know, part and parcel with the Ziva character interacting with her relationship with Jenny Shepard, which is outside of the core group down in the squad room. How you're interacting, becoming a member of the team when you're not really a member of the family, but you become this, you know, I think by the end of season 3, it's like nobody can imagine that Ziva hasn't always been a member of the team, even though you're an officer, David, you know. And then you have to go through later in the series the whole, you know, process of naturalization and becoming an American citizen and then becoming an agent. And all that stuff is really like a huge journey that you're, oh, wait, we're going to get to explore it on this podcast called Off Duty. Why are they calling this podcast Off Duty, by the way?
I don't know. I think you should answer that.
What do you think it is?
I think it's these 2 actors that have been playing cops that are now no longer on duty, and they're off, and they're going to get to sort of analyze.
I feel like I'm a little amped up right now.
You are. Can I ask you a question?
Okay,
what do you think
loosen me up.
What do you think is the special sauce that makes NCIS NCIS?
Oh, gosh. Yes. So it's such a good question for all the guests that we have on. I hope we get around to remembering to ask that. You're so good. I think the special sauce is sometimes the editing. I think they sprinkle.
You talk about the editing a lot.
They sprinkle fairy dust on these episodes. You know, when you watch them and you just see how they bump along, and the writing is like another element. It's a complicated sauce. I think.
But do you think it's going back to that family thing? Do you think it's that family thing?
I think it is. And I think it's KG veterans like Mark Harmon and David McCallum who understand that dynamic and want the value of that in real life, but also as being part of a team, being part of the world of, you know, fictional television. When you watch Gilligan's Island, I, for a little while, thought we were making Gilligan's Island with guns, but it turned out to not be true.
Okay, I read something that I want to ask you.
Oh, good.
What was the thing about life on set that was most surprising to you? And I read it and I was like, oh my, that's a good one.
Yes. Yes.
Because by the way, season 3 was a very particular season. We were all living
right next door to the set.
Right next door to the set.
Yeah.
And so we were making TV for many, 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 many hours.
And then
a day,
going
and then going out.
and then going out to the
It was
TGI
like some
Fridays.
crazy. It was like some crazy camp.
It was a crazy camp. And so
Crazy
in that
camp.
way, the question is interesting because at that point I had been on many sets. I'd been on many TV shows. I'd traveled for work all over the place. In season 3 particularly, as you're saying, that there was a sense of almost being on location. I called it Moonbase Alpha because it felt like we weren't even on the Earth. There were no executives coming by. We were 38 miles away from Hollywood or whatever. It was not part of the system. And we were protected from all of that, from those we didn't go out in Hollywood. We didn't go to restaurants and go to things and events.
We were far. We were far from Los Angeles.
No one would come visit us.
So
we had to play with each other. And
we were like the kids that were just...
right. You're like, I'm in Santa Clarita by Magic Mountain. Will you come out and have dinner with me at the Black Angus? It's really good. Remember the Black Angus? You probably don't.
No, I do.
But I had this... I had this thing about my desk in the squad room.
Tony, mister. Not now, Proby. I'm almost done with this level. Find out what's in the case yet, boss?
So the thing I most remember about this show in general, but particularly the season, is that desk was my safe place. I felt safe.
I remember you saying
that
to me
desk.
a couple of times.
I would retreat to the desk.
If you had to use one word to describe 2005, what was it for you? 2005, by the way, is season 3. So
yes, yeah. The end of season 2, the beginning of season 3. Which in the end of season 2 is Caitlin Todd getting shot by your half brother, Ari Aswari, who we call Ari, but it's really Ari Aswari. We do a lot of name flopping, which can be very like Fornell always called Denozzo. And because Harmon would not say Ari, he would say Ari.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark had a great way of being a little stubborn with certain things. But I would say if I had to describe 2005, I would say it was the first bulb on an extraordinary flower.
For me, it was a magical year.
Mm-hmm.
It was a year of massive personal transition. It was a year where I stopped feeling nerves. Everything gelled together. I felt very comfortable in that set. I felt very comfortable working with all of you. I felt that I found something very special working with you. That dynamic for me was really important.
Yeah, there were no mistakes.
Because all of the mistakes were a part of something that could then be spun into something else, and then that turned into laughter, and that could be turned into... Everything was just this really kind of fantastic frequency. It felt very much like I wanted to live there for a long time. It was kind of... It was unfortunate that it was the first year, because then it was very hard to sustain that level of like,
right.
You know what I mean? Because you're vibrating at such a high frequency.
Yes.
You know?
And now
it was incredible. And that we get to talk about season 3, it's going back and revisiting such a special time.
It is. And we had, nobody knew that the show was going to take off. We had this very special photo shoot one weekend where the CBS executives suddenly realized we did not have a cast photo with you and Lauren Holly and the rest of us. And they kind of maybe weren't even thinking about it from a publicity point of view. And we got this memo. Oh, you're going to be doing a full day photo shoot at this, at Sunset and Gower over by in this motel. And if you look at that picture in the motel where we're all on the bed, do you remember that picture?
I do remember that picture.
And what do you remember? Is there anything that jumps out at you?
We're all sort of holding each other.
We're all touching.
And
it's not posed. No one told us to do that.
No one did.
That is all the actual, it's the exuberance of what you're talking about. That, and I call it a bulb. It's like a blossom.
Mm-hmm.
But we saw it first. We knew that we had something in a bottle. And then everybody came to the party and was like, Hey, the ratings keep going up. I think
But
people
you have
like
to understand, it was my first party. So you'd been to many parties before.
Well, yeah.
You knew that this was a special party.
I went to a party
but it
once
was
and
my
nobody
first.
came. I
Yeah,
threw
but
a
I mean,
party.
but this was my first party, so I had no idea that this was a special party. I thought all parties were special.
Oh, yeah.
And all parties were like this.
Yeah. It's
So it's a weird thing.
Something Mark Harmon would remind us of time and time again.
Sure.
This is special. Remember this. And of course, no one ever remembers. But then you remember.
I mean, you have a tendency to sort of take things for granted.
You can do that very easily.
You can,
I think
and that's
that
such a lesson too.
You said it's hard to sustain that awe and wonder and that sense of, but I think we did it for a really long time. I think we did sustain this exploration and this
I'll tell you
continuing.
what, for me, the scenes that I could always rely on that would set me right back into that frequency were scenes that had to do with DiNozzo and things, and the scenes that had to do with Gibbs. Because those two characters for me were such huge pillars of character defining scenes, you know, and I relied so heavily on having these moments. Most of the big sort of emotional transitional moments were explored with those two characters. And both of those relationships were very complex. One was a father relationship with Gibbs. And the other one was, it's a romantic relationship that doesn't quite play out in a romantic way. I mean, there are moments that do, but for the most part, it's unfulfilled sexual tension.
Yeah, star-crossed.
Star-crossed lovers that actually never, they're almost always in different time zones, you know?
And
like
anytime you're open and available, then Jean Benoit comes up.
Right.
But then when Jean Benoit goes away, you're like, sorry, I'm undercover and I'm sleeping with this guy I'm undercover with. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And then, which both of our characters did. What would you say the special sauce is of NCIS? I didn't get back to you on that.
Well, I would say, I would say it's definitely the family thing. I think you get to see Gibbs, and I've seen now a couple of episodes of season 3, and revisiting this has been just awesome for so many reasons. But it.
Where did you watch them when you revisited them? Did you go to?
No.
Did you go to Paramount Plus?
Paramount Plus.
Why, strangely, I did the same thing.
And if you want to watch new episodes of NCIS, they are right now available on CBS.
That sounded almost like a little plug.
Yeah, almost.
Almost. Well, where else are you going to watch them? Well, I guess actually they're on reruns all over the world.
They're all
constantly.
over the world. Just turn on the TV.
Somehow 300 million people figured out how to watch it last year. So
going back
special
to
sauce.
Yeah, the special
is the
sauce.
Family. But it is the family, right?
It is the family.
And
but,
how do people project into
but
that?
Sherry, can I finish?
No.
No, okay, great. So, thank you. It is the family dynamic, but I think it's also the dysfunction within the family dynamic, because there's nothing about our family that is perfect. We're all different. We're all like no one wants to play each other's character. No one does. I never wanted to play DiNozzo. I never wanted to be, Abby Sciuto. I wanted to play Ziva. That's the character I wanted to play.
I'm picking up what you're laying down. I'm picking up what you're laying down.
You know what I mean? And so, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, I think there was that imperfect family thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that spoke to a lot of people.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people understood the concept of, we're not perfect. We're going to go through our bumpy situations, but at the end of the day, we're going to remain a family.
And people watching it would project. So if I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I'm like a Ziva kind of character, or I'm like a Ducky,
You're
or
totally
I'm like
right.
so people can have a kind of fantasy projection into the story. And because the characters are archetypes in a family, everyone is seen. And, it's not like, gosh, I can't imagine what that person's home life is. Ziva with some ramen noodles cleaning her weapon, right? And DiNozzo by himself in his little junior bed, eating pizza and reading like something that nobody thinks he would be reading, like some case file from something, because he's got to do his homework when nobody's watching.
Right, because at the end of the day, he's good.
Nobody can know how prepared he is. And, McGee typing away, it turns out he has this secret career as a writer, all these things. I am ready to play a game. This one is called Agree to Disagree.
Okay.
Cody,
How does it work?
No, this is the time we might learn some horrible truths about each other.
Oh,
so I just want to prepare you. Do you need to change your pants or anything?
No.
Put a diaper on?
Nope.
Because we are going to learn some stuff about each other. Okay, here's how it works. We'll read different statements from the internet to which we write agree or disagree on our whiteboards. Then we reveal it at the same time. Okay? Our agree, disagree. Beautiful harmony or horrible drama ensues. Are we kismet? Are we synchronous with each other?
Let's find out.
Are we out of sync, baby?
Let's do it.
Let's find this out. Okay.
Number one, there's
no point in eating French fries without ketchup. Oh, you have to like draw a little thing or something, right? That's it. Ready?
Okay.
Turning it around. Agree. Or mayo. Well, my God. I drew something.
Or
I don't
mayo.
know what I drew there.
It was like a dinosaur with one eye.
All right. Number 2, the book is always better than the movie, period. The book is always better than the movie. Disagree. Oh, how can you think always? So you're the kind of person that uses always?
Well, most.
No, it says always.
Most.
The book is always, it says.
Most.
Okay, but that wasn't the question.
Well, but okay, fine. Then I have to go for dis because of that word. Disagree.
Or do you believe that always the book?
No, not always, but most.
Should I read the question twice next time?
Oh,
just
God.
In case? I told you, things will go horribly wrong and get very contentious
my God.
if we disagree.
My God,
Can
Michael.
we agree on the next one? Can we agree to disagree?
Can we agree to disagree?
Hello?
All right. The person in the middle seat of an airline row gets both armrests. Disagree. There we go.
I'm with you. You know what? Right here, we're back.
We're back.
Back in the saddle, baby.
We were not in the same frequency for a little bit there.
It was
but
a
now
little
we're
unfortunate.
back on track, kitty.
I think you should read the next one because we got that last one
Okay,
right.
wait, 1 second. This is one of my favorite questions.
Oh, good.
Number 4, pineapple on pizza is delicious.
I don't even have to write this down.
Okay, you ready?
Look at the little equation I did. Pizza times
plus
pineapple.
No.
Equals
and I
no.
put, look at what I read.
I know Italians will hate me. And who's my character?
Denozzo. There you go.
Right.
So I know my audience.
Because
but you know what?
Tell me why you want that with the cheese. You want that sour pineapple.
Look,
acidic.
when I was a child,
It's acidic.
I lived in South America, and my dad, as a treat, once a week would take us to a pizza place called the Lioness. And we would sit there as kids, and he would always say, which pizza do you want? And we would always, as kids, ask for the Hawaiian pizza, which had the pineapple. So it's like a childhood thing for me. Not that I ever, by the way, today get a Hawaiian pizza. But if I were to say I don't think that's okay, that would be bull, because as a kid, that's what I had.
It's not a satisfying answer to me.
Well, I don't care. I'm not here to satisfy you. I'm here to give you the truth.
I'm telling you my truth is that answer I don't think satisfies anyone except for the freaks that like pineapple on their pizza.
Well, guess what? I represent the freaks.
Okay. All right, let's both read this at the same time because it's been a little contentious. I feel like we have to get back together. I think we're going to realize harmony on this one. Mark harmony. Are you ready?
It's better to be too hot than too cold. I'm going to beat you here. I'm going to beat you.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Agree.
That was my attempt at a thermometer.
And by the way, I had to kind of think about this because I lived in Miami for a long time, and I did not like it.
Okay.
And the extreme heat and the extreme humidity does something to me. I have to go into the AC, and I have to. It really affects me.
Well, we know Ziva likes the AC on.
But so I had to think about it. But then I thought, okay, so if the extremes came.
Yes. So it's 120 degrees.
You can always take off a layer. But if you don't have enough layers, you will get very,
and the question
very
wasn't,
cold.
would you rather burn to death or freeze to death?
No, because by the way, I
wouldn't
thought
wanna
about that.
freeze
I'd
to
want to
death.
freeze to death
Right.
too. Yeah.
So let's just say there are gradient levels to this. But I am in total synchronous, harmonious agreement.
So we only
with
disagreed
you.
on one thing, Hawaiian pizza.
And you know what? If you're going to disagree on something,
Hey, it's not a deal breaker. If we were married, that wouldn't be so bad.
I mean,
We'd go to a restaurant and
Not
then I'd
unless
say,
you
honey, I
brought-
want to have the Hawaiian
yeah,
pizza.
but if
And
you
you're
brought
like,
home for the whole fam, just a pizza covered in disgusting pineapple,
disgusting is a harsh
we
word.
would be talking to
A
somebody
therapist.
very quickly. Yes, I agree. Yes.
Yes.
Should we just carry
I
these
agree.
around with each other? Do you think life can just be brought down to yes and no sometimes?
I would love for my life to be simplified in that way. That's
mean,
such a good question.
But
Because
because you were talking earlier about the power of no when we were off camera, but it is an extremely important and powerful thing to know when to say no.
my mom said that that the
I love your
greatest
mom.
thing you could
We're
learn
going to
is
talk
to
about
say
your
no.
mom a lot.
The greatest,
greatest
thing you could say is the power of no.
And then one time,
And I think Mark Harmon actually said the same thing. Said,
Yes.
greatest thing, power of no.
the power of no. I don't think that was a Jim Carrey movie.
So now we're going to go into fan questions.
Is this about an oscillating fan? Like which kind of fan speed do you like? Low, medium, or fast?
No. These are actual fans. And by the way, if you're
Well,
a
you mean-
fan,
you
if
mean
you're
fanatics.
a fan, fanatics, if you're a fan, you can send your questions to offduty@spotify.com. We have a few questions here pulled from the internet to get us going. I wonder what any of the actors on NCIS would tell their characters if they met them in real life.
Oh.
What do you think, Tony DiNozzo?
Oh. Well, that's really super weird. Okay, you know what? I can do this in my Wayback Machine, which I'm utilizing for this podcast. If I did have an interaction with my character in real life, I'd be, well, it depends what age. If I met the young version of DiNozzo, I would be like, it's okay. It's okay to tell people that you have these feelings. And it's okay you don't have to, I'd get into some therapy. That's what I'd tell him. Call your father.
If I had to meet Siva, I would probably say, don't bottle it in.
Interesting.
Yeah,
We
that's
both
it.
have similar, we both want to help our characters.
Well, I mean,
Now, what
when you
would
do so
I
many
say?
seasons, you kind of go like, wow.
You know what
like
I'd
she
say
was-
to Ziva if I met her in real life?
What?
I'd say, you look a little like Salma Hayek. See, that's called a callback.
So, a fan question here. I need to know how things ended for Tony and Ziva. Does anyone have any thoughts? Well, I guess the best answer for that is a ... to be
Stay
continued. Stay
tuned.
tuned. And it may happen in Europe. So, and this is a very exciting thing for Michael and I, because we have also been talking about that for a long time.
Yes. And these things are combined and sort of entwined.
And
This-
also going to be explored. And that's the thing that you and I always wanted to do.
Yes, we're going to explore
what
the
happened.
characters.
Yeah, to these characters. And so it's
Why?
going to be fun.
Very good. Good question, fan. Well, these have been wonderful, thoughtful questions. Thank you, fans. And if you have other questions, you can reach out to us at offduty@spotify.com. Okay, now every week, as I have explained to you on this podcast, we are going to do segments. And this is a segment that I know Mark Harmon's going to love.
Well, actually, a lot of people are going to like this one because I think a lot of people have been fans of this particular thing.
And it's called
Gibbs Rule.
Gibbs Rules.
Gibbs Rule of the day, rule number 15,
Can I guess?
please.
Rule number 15 is you don't have to spell Jeff with an F.
Mm-mm.
What is it?
Mm-mm. Always work as a team.
Ah,
Rule number 15.
that's similar to LL Cool J's teamwork makes the dream work. Although I don't think he coined that. He did coin Mama Said Knock You Out.
That one.
Going back to Cali. Thank you most of all for being you, for being totally real and fun, and also for agreeing that the dress code could be casual.
Are you kidding me? I actually proposed a uniform. I was like, can it be black and white?
I was like, can I
every
dress
day?
up as
Can it just-"
Abby?
Oh,
But I didn't
God.
want to have the web on my...
But next week on Off Duty, we dive into season 3, episode 1, Kill Ari Part 1. And what an episode it is. Michael, why don't you give us a teaser on what we have in store?
I love the dramatic music. Okay, here we go. In my most dramatic music to match. What?
My most dramatic voice.
Oh, yeah. I just farted.
Oh, God. I think we have that in an episode, by
We
the
do.
way.
It's coming up. Okay, I sure will. And in my most dramatic voice to boot, here we go. In the aftermath of Caitlin Todd's tragic and unexpected murder at the hands of a rogue terrorist spy, Ari Aswari, the main NCIS team now finds themselves struggling to come to terms with the life-changing event while attempting to arrest Ari for his personal involvement in Kate's death. Gibbs, however, having had enough of federal agencies covering Ari's back, is more interested in avenging Kate's murderer. Meanwhile, things take a turn when Mossad officer Ziva David arrives at NCIS, and it soon becomes clear that she's trying to prevent Gibbs from doing the one thing he's set on, killing Ari. It's Season 3, Episode 1, Kill Ari, Part 1. Foof!